Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. We've got Shift Summer League action going down over the course of the month, and week 2 has officially wrapped up. So in today's video, we're going to recap what went down in days 3 and 4, or week 2, the standings, the trends, and everything else we're seeing. We're going to start with Europe, and then we'll get it over to NA. As a reminder, if you guys don't know when these goes down, every Tuesday and Wednesday. This week is actually the last week, but it'll be starting at 1 p.m. Eastern for Europe and 7 p.m. Eastern for North America. They play 3 series. Every team plays every team twice. At the end of it, we have 18 matches and a ranked leaderboard. Top 6 ends up moving on. But first things first, let's jump over into Europe. This is day 3 and day 4. These went down Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. Things balanced out, I would say. Oxygen has not dropped a series since their initial loss, and they are now perfect outside of that one game. So they're sitting pretty and doing pretty dang good looking at it. I will say, with that in mind, they've had a lot of close series. Speaking of day 3, game 5s every single time. And they got spicy, denying a reverse sweep here. Almost denying another reverse sweep here. Like, it's like there's been some moments where they are like, the games aren't convincing. And I think that's kind of the general narrative. Is I think the general sentiment from a lot of the players has been, number one, hey, this guys, this is going on a little bit too long. This isn't as much Rocket League as we really wanted to play during the offseason. And then the second thing is that they're just kind of taking it as scrims. Like, hey, we're going to play an hour of matches a few times for 2-3 hours, and then we're done. We're not really working outside of this. So it keeps the mechanics fresh. It keeps things entertaining, but we definitely aren't seeing like the highest level of play and prestige. We're not seeing the same type of intensity, and rightfully so. To an extent, because there's still like $20,000 on the line. I would assume the playoff bracket where there is weight involved for the top 6 is when you'll start to see it. If you can't just kind of coast through on your own merit, you're probably not going to win the whole thing anyway. So again, favorites in EU are Luna Galaxy, Oxygen, Jobless, and surprisingly enough, you've been seeing 100%. Been the talk of the town, kind of focusing in on them. They had a really close game 5 against Luna Galaxy. Almost got the reverse sweep. It was only a 1-goal game difference. It was actually cracked. Ever since I mentioned it, where I was like, hey, the difference has to be with Chippy stepping up. I think he won MVP this week. Like, he's been playing out of his mind. I quite honestly was like, he needs to step up, but I did not expect it based on previous history. The other cool thing about it too, and I'm saying Chippy, but I think I mean Crispy. But with Crispy, like, he's going to be playing in North America. He is actually coming over to go to school in NA and play for a collegiate, like a CRL team, and his LFT for RLCS. So maybe some new import talent come over. His teammate as well doing the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's Seamus. So pretty cool stuff in that regard, but they've been looking lights out. The team that's on the complete antithesis of that is Resolve. That Grid Serve Resolve team has not been looking good. They are bottom barrel, like bottom 2. They're barely getting wins and kind of getting steamrolled. While they do go toe-to-toe, basically that middle of the pack, all the teams that are from like 5 to 7 or 8 are just trading, and the win columns are going up and down like crazy. Some consistency with Endpoint is good to see, but then you have teams like Sadate that just out of nowhere end up performing even better. So I don't know. Like, the teams that we expected to play poorly are now stepping up, and the teams that are playing poorly are the ones that we thought were going to do well. I don't know. It's just EU is EUing really hard. Entertaining for sure, but at the end of the week of week 2, these are the current standings. Some things to focus in. JJ Rock's still struggling. They have a very defensive play style, and despite that changing a little bit in week 2, they started to assert a little bit more. They just don't have the talent, unfortunately, I think, to really push through. I think they're just getting outskilled by certain teams, even though fundamentally they're frustrating to play against at times. They did get another series win. I think both their series wins are against the same team, ironically enough. Resolve, again, struggling efforts. I just don't know if they're putting in the time or effort. But this team, to me, is one that definitely has to be grinding in order to be competitive. And I don't think they really are. Outside of that, Oxygen, like I said, playing dominant and 100% really looking good. What's crazy to me is Jobless, the team that I do coverage for with Ixo, Oli, and Nas. While they're 8 and 4, their game differential is absolute poo. Like, to be only +4, but having a plus, like, that means pretty much every game is going to game 5, and it's very frustrating, and it hurts my heart. It's like V1 all over again. I would like to see Jobless actually win convincingly in their series, which they have not been doing. So problematic there. Surprisingly enough, for Endpoint, they're either getting smacked around or they're playing a close series. So at least they have that. They're losing to the teams above them, but these teams they're playing close with. And it kind of tells the story. Espertaco is literally middle, right in the middle. Same thing with Luna Galaxy. I will say Luna Galaxy this week did play with their starting roster. They had a Chronic come back, so they're no longer Luna Galaxy Complexity. Offensively, they looked really good. I did post a video of them playing Jobless. Goes to 5. Very competitive series. Would recommend checking it out. Chronic hits some nasty shots as well. Looks like Luna Galaxy kind of getting back to their old form. But it kind of creates that conversation of throughout the RLCS season between like when it was Vitality, Magnifico, Redemption. All those teams kind of potentially going to have a chance to make it to the major. It came down to the consistency, and it was Vitality. So again, similar kind of narrative here in league play. Jumping over to the last thing, which I think is really cool, and shoutouts to user Spooky Boogie, who's a regular on the subreddit. He actually turned the information into a line graph and showed how the results have happened throughout the days. So starting with day 1 and day 2, this is week 1, and then day 3 and day 4, and how the results have played. Like we talked about, Oxygen lost the first one and have been nothing but perfect ever since. Cool thing about it is you can kind of tell and see who's been trending and who's been middle of the pack. The one that was a little bit nervous for me was obviously the Jobless guys, where it's like they started just kind of staying in between, but they came out of it. At the beginning of day 3, I was like, oh no, here we go again. It's going to be another 0-3, 0-2 day. What's going to happen? They did level out, and then they won the rest of their matches. So they started a little bit rough, but did balance it out. But 100% has been the one that really stole the show. They've ascended very quickly. They've had a little bit of a hiccup when they lose their match and keep it neutral, but other than that, it's been good. And then the Espertaco guys, who that's what Dying, Stizzy, and Dorito, I think, are the ones that I thought were going to perform a lot better, and now they're sitting right below halfway point. So pretty cool in that regard. We'll have another graph for these for North America here in a bit. Over in NA, though, if I click on the right thing, we have our day 1 and day 2 results. And surprisingly enough, the big one that took everybody by storm is Genji and G2 played a very close Game 5 series, and Genji ended up winning that one. Almost a reverse sweep, but they did lose it in OT, which is pretty crazy. Clarifications as well for everybody last week as well. A lot of you guys said it in the comments, which I appreciate. We did have the G2 disconnect thing, and people haven't been telling the full story. And I appreciate you guys educating me on that in the comments, but they did have their coach ready to go to sub in. They were ready to play and everything like that. And then on top of that, the other team, Indignitas, was like, hey, yo, we're willing to wait. And then the admins still punished them, which just makes no sense. The admins have been making some weird calls in Shift Summer League. It's not the first time that's happened. The one that I was most keen on, Pirates on a Boat, who's been very topsy-turvy, did win a close Game 5 against OG. Very exciting series. Went all the way with 3 OTs. And then Shopify's been pretty lethal. Shopify's been doing some really good things. They had a 3-0 start, and then it kind of balanced out. Obviously, they beat Fun, who's in last place right now. They've been struggling. They also beat Dig, and then got smacked by G2. Obviously, 1-goal games, except for that last one. But it is cool to see some of those teams like Dignitas with their new iteration using Zenil instead of Gyro, as well as Shopify, still show competition and are playing it evenly. The biggest surprise for me is RMC has been dominant. Reynolds, Magic Bear, and Cheese, super aggressive, in your face, assertive beyond belief, and just beyond disruptive. No regard for consequence. It's been very entertaining to watch. Frustrating to be on the receiving end of, for sure. But they are either winning their games convincingly and putting people away, or we saw Space Station actually give them a fight and keep it close, but we're able to get it out. LJ is just that guy. LJ is so good. I will say my biggest issue, though, with this week is all the matches that they did. They had at least 2 rematches. I don't know who did the scheduling or the formats and stuff, and more of the complaints. And this stuff happens a lot for real-time or for first-time tournament organizers. There's things that you just kind of lose in translation. But from what I've heard, they've known about these for like 3 weeks. And coaches and stuff are like, hey, why are you doing it like this? But you have, like, for example, and this happened in EU as well. Pirates on a Boat plays Gen G, Incorrect, and OG. And then the next day, they play Gen G, OG again. And then they play a different. So, like, 2 out of your 6 matches are repeats, and it's like in league play you're trying to span and show development and everything else. So to play them both in like a snake style draft, I don't know. It felt really weird. A lot of people were upset about it. Maybe they'll learn for next time. Hopefully we get another one of these next year. So little things to update, but it does make the results kind of odd. Almost similar to the conversation a lot of people have. It's like, hey, we lose to you in Swiss, so now we know how you beat us, so we have an advantage the next day. Luckily, for a majority of the time, that didn't happen. The better team did win. But I also believe that's just because people aren't really putting in the efforts that they could. So, teach their own. With that in mind, though, we do have the standings and where we're at. Again, fun sitting at the bottom. Pirates on a boat just barely above them. Their head-to-head is going to be super important. That is literally the difference between last place and second to last place. Pope has a win and a head-to-head over Fun. That's the difference. So, pretty close there. Otherwise, the thing I like in NA right now, obviously you have RMC sitting in number 1. That's the Reynolds, Magic, Bear, and Cheese team, looking very good with a solid game differential. Again, winning their lower matches very convincingly, which is what everybody is striving for. But outside of that, you've got a 4-way tie with some pretty big names. I think that's cool to see. As teams like Genji started really, really slow, same with G2 and a little bit of the hiccups. And while, yes, I don't think they're taking the utmost respect in these series, and I'm okay to be very blunt about the fact that it's like, you know what, like these guys aren't trying as hard as they could. They're trying to enjoy a little bit of a break. Genji is looking good. You are seeing a much less selfish first killer. It seems like they are trying to build towards a playstyle that is a 3-headed monster versus feed him the rock type stuff. A lot of cool things that I really, really enjoy. So Genji is looking very solid. I assume G2 and Genji are both obviously going to make like a top 4 appearance and make it into the playoffs. And that's when we'll get a real taste of what kind of intensity they're going to bring. But that battle for top 6, I think, is pretty solidified. But a fight between Rebellion, Dignitas, and OG, to me, was expected. So I am excited to see those types of things and see how they play out. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think Incorrect has done some pretty crazy upsets, but do I think they're in the running? Probably not. Same thing with Pobe. Although Pobe has shown moments, they then fall short, and it's very frustrating. I expect more out of the Pobe guys, but for some reason, they're just lacking that like midfield presence at times that they desperately need to really apply the pressure that they're looking for, which is frustrating. It's just frustrating because I know they have it in them, and we've seen it. We've seen the pop-off potential. We've seen the moments from both Eris, 5-Up, and Andy at times. Just haven't all been on the same page. So what does that mean for the final graphic? What does that look like? You can kind of see RMC has just been one step ahead every step of the time. Every time it looks like somebody else is going to take it, they win the head-to-head and they move back forward. While we had a couple weirdness of, you know, teams like G2 who we expected to just constantly ascend the whole way. Same thing with Genji. Genji was the one that started like 0-2 and then really have been ramping up. So that I think is expected to an extent. So as these teams kind of take things more seriously, and you even saw, I think it was Jack that tweeted that, where he's like, hey man, like we're just back from practice. Like we haven't played at all. We'll get back into a groove, and they're doing that. So people are exploitable. I think the coolest thing though is Incorrect is just straight down the middle. We are where we are, and that's not changing. So I think things are, especially in NA, because we do have all the top 4 teams playing, compared to the French that basically have boycotted because they're not getting paid. Things are going about as expected, but the big outlier, the LG boys, they're ex-LG boys, trying some new stuff with Greg, and it's looking good. So pretty cool stuff across the board. A little bit longer of a recap. If you guys have any additional questions, comments, concerns, let me know. As always, as well, make sure you guys go show some love to the graph on the subreddit from Spooky. Very, very clean visually, and it looks cool. So good to see the community stepping up and doing some cool stuff. Either way, that's going to do it for today's recap. Any questions, comments, concerns, let me know down below. Because you guys waited to the end, and it's greatly appreciated. There is a chance that the Jobless guys will be joining me on the Pirates on a Boat cast to critique, to say the least, and have some fun with some banter. So that turning into a watch party with the team could be very fun. So if you guys want to make sure you watch those, hit me up, twitch.tv/Lawler, or here on the YouTube. Those will be going on Tuesday, Wednesday again this week for the last time. So appreciate y'all coming and hanging out, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.